All right, we are recording. Oops, forgot to bring my mic down here. That's probably important. All righty, everybody, welcome in. Welcome back to another episode of the Frogs of War podcast. I believe this is episode 6 of the kind of resurgence of the podcast. My name is Ryan Bonnell, and alongside me is my co-host, Anthony North. We've got a ton to get to today. We're finally finishing up our superlative awards from the 2021-2022 Athletics year in review or recap. If you guys have been following along on the website, you've seen we've been posting every couple days a new team. We've had soccer, we've had rifle, football. Anthony just posted. So be sure to go check that out. And we're wrapping that up with the Superlatives Awards today, as well as a bomb has been dropped in the college football world and basically all of college sports because realignment seems to be upon us. Nobody really knows what's happening, but we will be discussing USC, UCLA moving to the Big Ten and what all that means for the future of college football. And that's pretty much going to be it, other than some quick news hits, which we're going to get into right now. Anthony, you want to take it away?
All right. Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, a lot to get to. So quick recruiting news since we last talked on the football trail. A couple of new offensive linemen from the Dallas area added to Sonny Dykes' squad. So we've got Narado Stoker, 3-star lineman from South Oak Cliff. There's a big guy here, 6'5", 310. Offensive lineman, interior offensive lineman, but has played at tackle positions. So versatile guy. And, his high school film from his junior highlights already has him blowing people up and pushing people all over. So excited to get him in. He joins his teammate, Bubba Brooks, who had previously committed out of South Oak Cliff. So exciting to get those two guys in. And then another offensive lineman from Duncanville, Benjamin Taylor Whitfield, 6'5", 270. He's a tackle. And so filling up the O-line with Dallas guys
Some big boys too,
and living up to the DFW Big 12 team hashtag that Dykes and crew have come in and really tried to push a dominance in recruiting to make sure these guys stay local, stay home here in DFW, and it's really paying off so far. Yeah. Any thoughts on that?
Nah, it's just nice to see getting some beefy boys. I like those stats already. Just 6'5", 310. It's pretty solid.
Yeah, and really piling up O linemen. I think it's 4 or 5 already of the committed recruits or O linemen. So it's definitely a position of need that we need to. Frogs need to stack up the depth there. So encouraging to that.
Yeah, you can never go wrong with that.
On to quick baseball news. So the position that was vacated when Bill Mosiello, associate head coach, left to take the Ohio State head coaching job, has been filled, as Kirk Saarloos was able to bring a Division I head coach, Nevada's TJ Bruce, in to fill that role for the Horned Frogs. So just goes to kind of show that the commitment to the program that the university has, that we're able to, TCU is able to bring in a head coach and take an associate head coach position at TCU. So good stuff there. And with that, this past week, we've seen 2 incoming transfers, both pitchers.
Huge.
Yeah, and obviously the pitching staff needs a reload and a refresh, and they'll get in the system, and Saarloos will be able to really take hold of these guys. So we've got UNC Wilmington reliever Hunter Hodges and Nevada starter Cade Morris, who moves with his former head coach from Reno. Both of these guys have according to reports, looked really good in the Cape Cod League through the summer already, and so I think it's we'll be definitely looking to them to make some noise come next spring. Baseball team did lose one transfer to the transfer portal, so Garrison Berkeley has put his name in the transfer portal, intending to leave TCU. It's the second outfielder departure from the offseason. So Sam Thompson had already announced his entry into the portal. So, getting a little thin on the depth for the outfield. There's there were a few players that kind of rotated through there, but you don't really like to see two from the same position. So that's
Yeah,
unfortunate.
I was about to say Berkeley kind of doesn't surprise me too much because he was, mostly used as the utility player. But yeah, that is tough to lose two out of the outfield. Overall, though, with the TJ Bruce, yeah, I agree with what you said. Like, that is very impressive to be able to bring in a head coach to an assistant job. Like, kind of really speaks to what the Frogs have going on. That TJ Bruce would be willing to leave that position to come for an assistant position, and also, the starter, Cade Morris, coming over with him. I'm sure they already have a great relationship. Sure, that's going to translate well in Fort Worth. So, yeah, you can't go wrong with adding a couple pitchers, that's what we talked about last week, too. Need to get more pitching depth. Need to get our bullpen worked up. But now I guess it seems like we might need to sign an outfielder or two.
Yeah, keep them coming. Keep bringing that talent into the squad. Yeah. Next up, so today in Wimbledon news, got some former Frogs that playing in the Grand Slam over there. And so Alistair Gray, who's lower ranked in the world rankings, but got himself into the Wimbledon tournament and earned a win in the first one. So impressive work to him. Fritz, who's world ranked number 14. So slouch there, no shame in losing to a top 15 talent, but exciting for him to get that first win in Wimbledon, and he's a British guy, so getting that kind of at his home Grand Slam is impressive. And then fellow Brit Cam Norrie, who's reached his way all the way up to the 9 seed in this tournament. He won earlier today in straight sets and will move on to the round of 16. So he's continuing to push to maybe get that first Grand Slam on his trophy case. So he'll get American Tommy Paul in that round of 16 matchup, and I think that's on maybe July 3rd morning here Texas time. So
do you know what Cam Norrie's world ranking is? Because I know he's just been slowly but surely climbing.
Yeah, I think his world ranking is 12. 12. Yeah, 12.
That's pretty solid. Jeez.
Yeah, so he's the 9 seed here in this tournament, 12 in the world ranking, and I mean he's racked up something like 5+ million in earnings, and he's killing it out there. He's to
doing
get to
well
that level on the world stage is incredibly impressive. So exciting stuff for the former Frogs.
Yeah, I remember not too long ago. I'm not a huge professional tennis guy, but I saw Cam Norrie played Djokovic, and I forget what competition it was, but he was up against Djokovic. Djokovic was like a minus 1,300 betting favorite. Norrie was like plus 800. I'm like, sprinkle a little bit. Yeah, sprinkle a little bit. And Norrie got beaten straight sets. So, I mean, it happens, though. It's Djokovic, but one day he will be in that upper echelon where you can beat guys like Djokovic, Federer. I mean, he's on the right path. Dude's just getting better and better every time I hear about him.
He's got a big opportunity here at Wimbledon. I mean, the bracket sets up for him okay. I think he would get Djokovic in the in like maybe the semifinals. So
I want that though. I want to see that.
Yeah. I think it's they're on a collision course. Let's make it happen.
I'd be down for that.
Last piece of kind of big news that came out through the last week, the Big 12 announced selection of its new conference commissioner. It'll be Brett Yormark. Brett Yormark. Replacing Bob Bowley, who retired, he was let go. So Big 12 moved on from Bowlesby, and Yormark will be coming in. He is leaving his job as the chief operating officer at Rock Nation, the record label and sports management, entertainment management company. So he's coming from outside of the college sports world. Similar to what the Pac-12 did, bringing in George Kliavkov from MGM Resorts, who had basically no sports experience outside of like running sports books, I guess.
Yeah.
But this seems to be kind of a trend of these you need a CEO more than you need a college administrator. You need
Hmm.
someone who can run a business and make moves in the marketplace more than somebody who can is talking about classes or whatever. I think it's clear that these conference commissioners are meant to be less of a college administrator and more of a businessman.
Yeah, true. But yeah, and I kind of part of me likes it the higher just because it's a little bit out of the box. It's different. And although yeah, this guy Yorman or Yormark, sorry, is probably more of a true businessman because of his background. But also, I mean, Rock Nation does have like a whole sports management group, so I think that's may give us like a good combination of like the businessman background, business mindset, with also kind of like having that passion for sports, which is what you want. You don't want somebody to just blatantly ignore like all like the human aspects of sports or anything just for like money and what's best for the company and yada yada. So I think just based off the small amount of information I know, I'm pretty happy with the hire. I'm curious to see how it'll pan out because I was not a big fan of Bob Bowlesby. So
Yeah. That's probably the best thing about this is that it's not Bobby. I think, obviously, the way he just kind of got run laps around with Oklahoma and Texas leaving, and things with college football playoff, and I don't know. I think his time was up, and it's time for some new thoughts there. And yeah, back to your mark though. He's not totally void of sports background. He
Mhm.
was president, or he was an executive in the Nets organization
Oh, okay, yeah. See, I didn't even know
for
that.
many years. He was the facilitator of their move from New Jersey to Brooklyn, and was the CEO of the Brooklyn sports group there, where they built the Barclays Center and brought in all the sporting events to the Barclays Center. So um, and before that also worked with NASCAR. He was an executive at NASCAR, so he definitely has a sports mindset,
Mhm.
no question. And we'll bring some of that connections and savvy to the Big 12 hopefully, and it's a big time, and we'll talk about it once we're through some of this other stuff. But obviously, pretty critical moment in college sports
Yeah.
right now, we're on the cusp of another realignment explosion here.
Yeah,
So
nationwide chaos.
it's going to be madness, and he's going to be thrown right into that fire. So um, we'll see there. And one thing coming out of this, so in all the media reports, it's all coming from Jay-Z's Rock Nation, Jay-Z's Rock Nation. So I guess I'm curious, as an old man, is Jay-Z to you? Is Jay-Z relevant? Like, who is Jay-Z to you? Is he just some old guy who runs business and is married to Beyonce, or what is he to you?
Well, I don't know. The best way I could describe it would, for me at least, I mean, I guess everybody's a little bit different, but for me, I kind of view him like Dr. Dre, almost like a father figure of hip hop. Like he's kind of had his time in the spotlight, but now, if Jay Z drops an album, everybody's going to listen to it, and they're going to listen to it once probably because, like, his albums now are not the same as they were back in 2000. So, I view him kind of as like a godfather of hip hop in a way, one of like the
Okay.
founding fathers with like Dr. Dre, him, because you look at like they're just prime examples. They've run businesses, they've started record labels, like Dr. Dre with the beats. They've done so much for hip hop, like other than just making music. So yes, he is an old rich guy, but like he's a very involved old rich guy that does like a lot for the hip hop community still. But that's the best way I could describe it. I don't know. I won't say that I don't listen to Jay-Z on a daily
D-
basis.
okay, no, he's not running. Okay, I got you. I got you.
Yeah.
I was just curious because I mean, I think like Black Album dropped when I was in high school, so that's like,
I was just about to ask, like,
yeah,
what Jay-Z albums were out in
that's
your heyday?
probably that's I think, yeah. I mean, Blueprint 2 and Black Album dropped while I was in high school, and I had heard some of this stuff before, but that's probably my most experience with Jay Z is listening to those. And yeah, I mean, like you've got Watch the Throne and stuff like that more recently with Kanye, and he's done other stuff. But yeah, that's probably my closest
Yeah, see, for
Jay-Z.
me, like I guess in my like heyday of music when Jay-Z like was Watch the Throne and also Magna Carta.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, but Watch the Throne was definitely more iconic just because Jay-Z and Kanye together. But yeah, I don't know. Do you have a favorite Jay-Z song from the Black album or anything?
Well, so probably my go-to there is on Blueprint 2. There's a song called "Meet the Parents," and it's like a story. It's not like a banger. It's not like you don't go to the club and listen to it at all. It's like a kind of a sad story, but it's like I don't know, old school Jay-Z telling a story. It's like more that kind of rap
I
where
like that. Yeah.
yeah. So go find that. Go find Meet the Parents. Listen to it. It's a really good one. Um, Probably my favorite like fun Jay Z song is 99 Problems.
Oh yeah, that's a
That's
classic. Yeah.
that's a that's a banger for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I respect that. I like I'm a big fan of kind of like not to be cheesy, but like the lyrical, meaningful music rather than let's turn the bass up to full volume and let's go to the club and bang out, Like there's a time and a place for those songs, but yeah, if I had to pick one, I'd probably say Holy Grail with Justin Timberlake.
Timberlake, yeah.
Yeah, classic. But
Cool.
alrighty, enough on Jay Z. Let's go ahead and get into now. I think it's finally time for some superlative awards. Anthony and I have put together a little bit of a list of, basically fake awards that we have disseminated amongst TCU athletes. We got freshman of the year, coach of the year, international athlete. We got a decent amount. So we're just kind of go through them one by one. Each of us give our take. Probably not spend too much time on it because I know we're going to have a ton to say on the USC, UCLA stuff. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. Starting off with, if you had to say, this is also across all sports. This isn't just one sport. This is every sport on TCU's campus. So if you had to pick a freshman of the year from the 2021-22 athletics year, who are you taking?
All right, my choice is David Bishop from the baseball team, first baseman. Started basically every game all season right from the jump, and was a huge contributor to the Big 12 conference champion. So I think that's a tough place to just come in and be a contributor at all as a freshman, but to be a starter at an infield position and hit near the top of the lineup. That he huge contributor right out of the gate for a true freshman.
Yeah, definitely a good choice. I went a little different route with the soccer team, and I went with Cameron Lancaster, who was an electric forward for TCU soccer this past season. Began the year coming off the bench, fresh legs for Eric Bell's pretty relentless attacking scheme. And Lancaster quickly found herself in the starting lineup after just contributing on, it felt like every other goal Lancaster was involved on, if not every goal for some games. She created chances left and right. She has crazy vision, could pass it from nearly anywhere on the field, and she can finish. She had, I think, 9 goals and 8 assists, or vice versa, 8 goals and 9 assists. So to do that as a freshman for one of the top soccer programs in the country is nuts. So Lancaster's definitely a name to look out for in the collegiate soccer world. I think she's going to win a Mac Herman Trophy eventually. All right, next up, we got a little bit of a fun one here. Locker room MVP. Who is, I guess that's pretty self-explanatory. Who's the guy, who's the heart and soul of the team, lifts the spirits, all that jazz.
We know it's Eddie Lampkin. He lifts all our spirits. He gets us all fired up. I think it's clear in all those like locker room videos that they show post game that the athletic department puts out, and it's clear on the court even when he's on the bench before games, after games. He's the guy. So yeah, there's no question. He gets us all hyped and ready to cheer on the Frogs.
Yeah, I remember Anthony and I were kind of like trying to do different answers just for discussion's sake, but then this one, it's Eddie. It's Eddie. It's just so clear that it has to be Eddie Lampkin on this one. Just aside from even those videos of the locker room, like this dude shows up to football practices. He goes to volleyball games. Like he loves the university. And beyond
Throwing out a
that
first
too,
pitch at a baseball game. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like, and beyond that too, he's like one of the nicest athletes that I've ever met at TCU, in the sense of like students will go up after a game and take pictures with Mike Miles and stuff, because like he's Mike Miles. He's like the best player of the team. All the freshmen want to take a picture with him and everything. Like same thing with football. Like people take pictures, but Eddie will like talk to the students, like just a random student that comes up to him. He'll talk. He'll like laugh with you. He'll dap you up like you're his friend already. So like he's just that kind of dude. He definitely is far and away locker room MVP. Probably locker room MVP for like the last decade of TCU sports, if I had to pick.
No doubt. Yeah, he's the man. What can you
All
say?
right. And then next up, we got surprise of the year. So which athlete this isn't necessarily to discredit anybody. Like obviously we expect everybody is a talented athlete, but maybe who kind of had a much better year than expected, who had improved crazy over the course of the season. So who was a surprise to you?
Yeah, my big surprise, my breakout was Tommy Sacco, shortstop on the baseball team. He's been the starter at shortstop, and he's been an excellent defensive player out there. But his hitting numbers had not been anything to write home about. He was kind of just another guy in the lineup. And this season he came out and just exploded. I don't have the stats in front of me, but he slash lines jumped like 200 points, where he was hitting in like the 200s, and then this season he was hitting over like 340. Um, Hitting for power, hitting, clutch hitting, stealing bases. It just He was the kind of the heart of the team, and not just doing it defensively or in his leadership, but doing it with the bat in his hand as well.
Yeah, he was definitely the backbone of the team this year. And I went different round again. For me, the surprise was I chose Lauren Collette, again, of the soccer team, not because we didn't really expect her to be good, but because we didn't know what to expect. Like she truly hadn't had a full opportunity with TCU legend Emily Alvarado in goal the season before, or her freshman season. And then with Alvarado departing, Lauren Collette got a chance. At the beginning of the season, she did split time. I'm blanking on the name right now. With, I believe, Summer Holt. No, it was. I'm blanking. But we had a transfer goalkeeper. She split time with at the beginning of the season. Eventually took over the starting role. Finished with one of the best save percentages in the country. I think she had double-digit clean sheets. So it was very minimal of a drop-off, if any, from Alvarado to Collette, which is saying something because Alvarado was that good. So my choice was Collette.
Yeah, huge shoes to fill, and did it not just didn't just fill those shoes, but really lived up to that role, and gave TCU a chance in every game. And I think really exciting in shootouts too, where she's stopping PKs, and
Yeah, Eric Bell would always he said it multiple times throughout the year, because there was a couple penalty shootouts where Collette would make a save, and he would always say, "You ask for your keeper to make one save in a shootout. That's all you want. Collette can make two." And he would always say that, we're confident she can go out there and save two of them. And if they save two, then you're in golden position to win the shootout. So definitely a huge talent, and glad it worked out for the Frogs, because that was a big key position for him. And next up, we got Coach of the Year. So this one's a little bit more traditional. Anthony, what do you got?
Yeah, I went with David Roditi from men's tennis. I think that tennis program, he's built that program to the point where there are high expectations, and they have an absolutely stacked squad. But to win an indoor national championship, to go into the outdoor NCAA tournament as the number one overall seed, to the team that he put together, and the way that team went and performed this season, was even to another level for the TCU men's tennis program. So that's where my head went. Is look, if you bring a national championship,
You're
it's
right. Yeah.
you get the coach of the year nod.
Yeah, I had a tough time deciding this one because I almost went with Roditi as well. I also almost went with Karen Munoz, the rifle coach, because again, national title. But I ended up going with Jamie Dixon because I mean we all know it's no secret how crazy this basketball season was for us, getting the first tournament win in 30 plus years. But I really went with Dixon not only for the tournament win, but for what he was able to accomplish with the team he put together. Uh, 8 transfer players, a group of guys that have never played a full season together, let alone practice together, brings them in, has a couple, question marks, couple worries at the beginning of the season, like, oh, are we going to drop off once we get to Big 12 play? But he improved. Like the team got better. He found his system. He coached really well against some of the big teams. So it was very, very close for me, but I went with Jamie Dixon just because I think he's kind of set up the basketball team for great success in the next coming years. And
Yeah, I mean, he was able to meet every moment. Like he,
mhm,
there were moments, and up until the final moment,
yeah,
I think that team and his coaching was able to meet every moment. I think, yeah, it was. What's great about TCU athletics is you could have picked probably 4, 5, 6
yeah,
different coaches here, and it
exactly.
could have been a correct answer. You could have picked Sarloos. I mean, it's his
Hmm.
first season; he wins a Big 12
Yeah,
title. You could have picked Bell. The job they did with the soccer team. So yeah, we're blessed at TCU with riches in the coaching department.
yeah, for sure. That's what I was just thinking too. Like you can kind of with the I don't know. I always think of like the Jordan LeBron argument. You can skew the numbers any way you want to make the case for either player. Same thing with these coaches. Like you can like Sarlus, you can make the point first year Big 12 champion, made it to the tournament. Like yeah, all of these guys and girls have been pretty impressive for the Frogs as of late. And staying with coaches though, next up we got the assistant of the year. Who's your assistant coach of the year?
Yeah, I gave it to Bill Mosiello. I think we talked about Tommy Sacco's improvement with the bat, but really you see it across the board with the Horned Frogs hitters. Uh, Eli Nunez took a huge step forward, and this is how it's gone through his long tenure at TCU. But he really gets these guys in and improves their ability at the plate, and it really came through. And Kirk Sarloos suspension in the Big 12 tournament, and unfortunately TCU lost both of those games. But at no fault of Mosiello, I wouldn't think. And now
No,
he
yeah,
gets that opportunity to hit the big stage in the head coaching job at Ohio State.
yeah, definitely can't go wrong with that choice as well. This was another tough one because again, you could probably skew it any other way for any of these assistants, but I went with Jerry Kill for the football team, and it was an interesting decision for me because, like, yes, he didn't really come in and take us to a bowl game or something, but he was thrown into the fire. He had come into this year kind of not expecting to ever be a coach again. And now he, after this season, got a head coaching position at New Mexico State. So good for him. Excited that he's going to keep coaching. But that Baylor win kind of cemented it for me. Just coming in first week, keeping everything together, not letting it blow up, having your players stay disciplined. Like it was huge, and Kill kind of embodied everything that Gary had set up for the program. Kill had embodied everything that, TCU football was all about. And he just kind of went in there and kept going. So I got to give a ton of credit to him for just being in that position, being thrown into the fire literally halfway through the season and finishing the way he did. Although it, yes, could have been better, I think he still did a great job.
I mean, he got the job done in that Baylor game. That's
Yes.
if we can forget everything else that happened all football season, but Jerry
But
Kill in the first game without Gary Patterson beat Baylor.
a
So
top 10
we're all
team.
good.
Yeah, we're all good there. We're all square. All right, and then next up, we've a little bit similar to the surprise of the year, but more specifically, who is the most improved athlete from this past season?
Yeah, I went with Eddie Lampkin. So, in going into this season, he was always had been the fan favorite and the fun guy, and people him as, oh, there's Eddie. We're excited if he gets in the game, maybe. This season he became a force on the court. His numbers jumped way up, and this probably goes over a couple years where you look at the pictures of him, out of high school and over the last couple of years, the improvement that he's made to his body, to his
Oh, for
physical
sure.
abilities, to where he's still that big force on the floor, but he's able to get up and down the floor quick and make plays, and he's a complete athlete out there. And now he's on the national stage, NIL deals. He's a well-known figure at this point, and will be a key cog going forward, and was a key reason why that team was able to do in this past season.
Yeah, Eddie is definitely a great choice for this because I just remember I knew he was working in the offseason, I knew he was trying to lose weight, but then seeing him that first game of the year, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, no way. Like he lost, what was it? I think like 75 pounds.
It's a transformation. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. But like you said, he still maintains that beefiness, that big body. He can still power through people in the post. Yeah. He was just phenomenal this year, especially whenever you consider he was kind of like, the guy that the fans would cheer at the end of the game for, Eddie, with like 40 seconds left on the
Right.
clock, So crazy transition from last year to this year. I decided Eddie was probably a 50-50 coin flip choice for me, but I went with Tommy Sacco just for the sake of difference. And basically, there's really not much to add with what you said on the surprise of the year. Like, he's been a solid defensive player, but really that offense, his bat just started swinging this year. Crazy improvement. He was one of the guys that the Frogs relied on countless times this season to crack one on base. So definitely those two, I'd say, are probably the top two most improved from last year to this past season. All right. And then another little bit of a fun one, not a traditional one, but we got the king or queen of consistency. Who is just straight up the most consistent athlete? You can always count on them. Day in, day out, they go and produce. Who you got?
Yeah, I went with the doubles combo of Luke Famba and Jake Fernley from the men's tennis team. They ended the year as the regular season, at least, as the number one pair in the country, and they were just Am I back? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, from the top spot, taking on the best pairing from the other team. Went 19-5 in doubles through the season, and each also competed in singles, going 35-11. Yeah, just being able to have that kind of dominant duo is just such a benefit. You kind of gives you a backstop for that tennis team in each match.
And they were pretty highly ranked as a duo, right?
Yeah, they were number one.
Yeah.
Pair.
Okay, well, I'd say that's pretty highly ranked. Yeah.
Yeah.
I decided to go with Stephanie Grunzo of the TCU rifle team. So if you guys have been following along on the website, check out the rifle team recap. Talked about they won the air rifle national title, got a runner-up in the aggregate score. But Grunzo was the rock of the team. She is far and away the all-star, as well as Kristen Hemphill is a stud as well. But Grunzo is just so consistent. It's absurd. Every aggregate score she had this year was between 1180 and 1190, with only one oddity on each end. I think it was an 1178, which is crazy for that to be your lowest score all season. And then an 1194, which was a team record or team best for the season. So she's been nuts. She's always in like the top 10, top 20 nationally of shooting. She's had perfect score on air rifle before. So she just, every time she has a rifle in her hand, she's probably going to shoot well, is what you can get out of this. So Grunzo is my choice. Next up, we got International Athlete of the Year. TCU's definitely had a bit of an increase in terms of international athletes across their rosters over the past couple of years, mostly with the transfer portal and everything. You've seen it with Rodati's tennis team, even on the basketball team, a few guys. So if you had to pick any of these international players, who would you say?
Oh yeah, I went with Emmanuel Miller from the basketball team. He's from Canada, so Canadian basketball has been growing, and you're seeing a lot of NBA players. You're seeing their national team is much improved, and Miller is getting some opportunity to play for kind of some of the youth national teams. That's probably not the right phrase, but that's again a starter on one of the all-time great TCU basketball teams. And yeah, I think it's easy to say, oh well, that doesn't really count. Canada's that's close
It's
by.
still, it's a
That's
national.
international.
Yeah.
He's Canadian. We'll give it to him.
Yeah, and well deserving as well. E-Man was phenomenal for the Frogs all season. I decided to go with a little bit more of a traditional international country per se, and I went with Juan Carlos Aguilar, who is from Bolivia, grad student on the tennis team, previously at A&M, but this year was just one of the rocks for the TCU tennis team. Was constantly up in the higher in the rankings. Just went out there and got dubs. That's all I got to say. He was fantastic for the tennis team all season, and definitely one of the top international guys in the purple and white this past season. Which the tennis team is basically all international athletes. So really, any of them could have fit this bill.
You could have just said, yeah, the tennis team, much of the women's volleyball team, the beach volleyball team. Yeah, there's several like that. Yeah.
All right, and then next up, wait, what was that?
No, go ahead.
Okay, I was gonna say next up, we got the duo of the year. So this can be in a duo sport like tennis, or it can be in an individual sport. What do you got?
Yeah, speaking of players from the beach volleyball team, I went with Daniela Alvarez and Tanya Moreno, who were the number one pairing for the beach volleyball team. And that the team overall was the number 2 seed into the tournament. They, as a duo themselves, were the conference duo of the year. They were All-American duo of the year. They did it all. So and yes, they played together on the court at the same time, and they're both from Spain and play together on Spanish national teams and in international competitions. And yeah, their rapport shows on the sand, and they're dominant. I mean, they lost very few matches all year, again, and from the number 1 spot. So they're facing whatever the best squad from their opponent has to offer out there, and they took on everyone that came their way. So yeah, I think that's the duo of the year.
You make a hard argument to counter that. So I'd say they're up there, Famba, Fernley up there, but I went with an untraditional duo, not like technically paired together. But I went with the football team, and I went with Zach Evans and Kendre Miller out of the backfield, just the two-headed monster. I know everybody's a little bit panicky because we lost the 5-star recruit that is Zach Evans, but Kendre Miller is a baller. Like, these two together last year combined for over like 1,250 yards, and I think they had close to 80 to 90 carries each. So they're averaging, each of them were averaging over 7 yards per carry, which is absolutely nuts. Kendre Miller averaged half a yard more than Evans, also had 2 more touchdowns than him on 10 less carries. So I know Zach Evans is that illustrious guy. Miller's going to be just fine. But last year, those two together was a force to be reckoned with. No matter who got the ball, that front seven on the opposite side of the line of scrimmage should be worried. But that's who I went with my duo.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I mean, yes, the TCU football team will be just fine with Kendre Miller. I think, like you said, we had published the football recap last year, and one thing going back watching all those games, which is as hard as it was to go back and watch some of that stuff, is pretty bad. But one thing that I think got buried under all of the losing was just how amazing and dynamic and all of the possible adjectives you could say Zach Evans. He was incredible. And I think he took a lot of heat from TCU fans just generally of like it became kind of clear that he was ready to hit the transfer portal and had an eye towards the NFL and I don't really know why fans would begrudge that so
Yeah,
much.
I don't blame him. Yeah.
Like you said, I mean, he got his carries and he took those carries and was mostly incredible with them. I mean, there's some of his touchdown runs and catch and runs out of the backfield. The way he runs is just so smooth and so clean. And yeah, we're gonna miss him in the purple, and now that he's down in Ole Miss. But I think just taking a little look back at yes, maybe running back is where 5 stars matter the least. You can throw anybody back there and they're pretty good. And Kendre Miller is excellent. So how much better is Zach Evans? And probably not that much better, but man, he's something else. And it was, I think TCU is going to miss him though.
Yeah, to have Kendre Miller as like your second option is nuts. That's why those two together, like typically teams, depending on your formation and scheme, like you put in that secondary or third running back, they're like, oh, they're passing it. They're not going to run the ball with him. But with the Frogs last year, Evans, Miller, hell, even Amari DiMercado, they could all carry the ball. So they were definitely a force to be reckoned with for the most part, I guess. And last but not least, the big one, we got MVP, who is the overall most valuable player from all TCU sports.
Yeah, in my mind, this is super easy. The most valuable player for TCU Athletics in 21-22 was no question Mike Miles. He was the star of the basketball team that brought TCU its first tournament victory since 1987. He's the leader of the team, face of the team, star player, and was a fighter. And so yeah, he's the most valuable player. He's the man.
This is another one that we just had to agree on because this is the clear-cut answer in both of our minds. I agree 100%. It's got to be Mike Miles. Everything he did for the team, put the city on his back, literally fighting for his city, Fort Worth. He played through a minor wrist injury for the majority of the season too, and to still put up like 20 plus points per game is nuts. And when you look at an MVP-esque award, you got to think about where would that team or where would that unit be without him. And I think of any team on campus, you take out Mike Miles, that changes things more than it would, like, say, taking out Zach Evans from the football team.
No doubt.
Like it's a much larger impact. He means so much to the team. The offense runs through him. So you got to give it to Mike. I do have an honorable mention, though, from the soccer team, Messiah Bright. The lone All-American. She was a Mac Herman Trophy semifinalist. She had, I think, two hat tricks throughout the course of the year, finished with like close to 15 goals. She was nuts. She was just putting the ball in the back of the net. But overall, Miles, I think, was definitely most important to that team. All right, we did it. We got through the superlatives after like what, I don't know, 2 or 3 episodes.
At least 3 weeks, yeah.
Yeah, but all right. Now it is time to talk. I've been waiting for this. The demise of college football as we know it. Might be a bit dramatic, but Who knows?
Maybe.
Okay. We don't know what's going to happen. Literally everything is up in the air. Chaos is bound to ensue one of these days. But for those that don't know, USC, UCLA officially set to leave the Pac 12 for the Big Ten in 2024 as their bid was accepted yesterday. And all I got to say is this makes zero effing sense. Like, they have two Southern California teams going to play in the snow of Columbus, Ohio. They're going to be playing in blizzards in October when they're used to 70-degree weathers and palm trees. Like, what? Yeah, I saw your little money thing. You're
Yeah.
totally right. Yeah.
Once again, yeah. Yes, number one, that'll be hilarious. Yeah, seeing like the baby blue, the powder blue in the snow. That'll be fun. But yeah, I mean, it's all the Big Ten's got the money, and this fortifies them to for a future super conference opportunity. And
Yeah.
it makes no geographic sense. It makes no sense really outside of a football context.
Well, I mean, if we're talking like the business aspect, maybe, but from a football standpoint, the brand of Big Ten football is much different than Pac-12 football.
It is, and really though, like, what is Pac-12? At least for USC and UCLA, what are they to Pac-12 football? I mean, it's been Oregon and it's been Utah.
You're right. Yeah. They're just the historic, they're like
Yeah,
the UT basically of the conference.
right. Exactly. Yeah, Reggie Bush, all-time great Big Ten athlete. Right. Uh, I clearly it's going to be different styles. But it's all a land grab. Who can you get? And all these schools, they've got to find themselves a place somewhere. I think back this time last year when Texas and Oklahoma made their move, I think there was a lot of kind of national panic of, oh, the Big 12 is done, it's over. But even losing those two, with knowing that you were going to be able to pick up some combination of the top G5 teams, was probably still in a better position than the Pac-12.
Yeah, I agree.
From a media standpoint, from a on-field, on-court standpoint,
yeah, we were definitely the
at
most
least
vulnerable.
I felt Big 12 was still in a better position than the Pac-12 was.
Once we
And
added those four teams, I agree.
yeah, and then once we added the four teams, it was totally on. I mean, I think the Big 12 is now in a clearly position of strength here. If it decides to be, we'll see what your mark is able to come in and make happen.
Yeah, I've heard basically every conspiracy theory out there on like what could come to be with all this. I've heard people say, of all things, the Big 12 is going to disperse, that TCU, Oklahoma State, and Tech should go to the Pac 12 immediately and just leave the Big 12, which to me doesn't make much sense. I don't really understand that because I think the Big 12 right now, we've kind of solidified it. We're okay. If the Pac 12 wants to blow up, we'll gladly take Arizona and ASU and try and compete maybe with those bigger conferences, because right now it's SEC is going to be at 16, Big 10 is going to be at 16, Pac-12 is down to 10 now, and the Big 12 is finally at 12 teams for like the first time in a long time. So the conference names make no sense, but that's beside the point. I don't know. Do you think this is going to be similar to the 2011 or 2010, 2011 realignment?
Yeah, and yes, yeah, this is going to be a major shakeup. We're definitely getting some movement, and I think where this is even bigger, because it's going to be fully national scale. There's going to be, and really, I think the G5 level of this has already happened. So, like the way the Sun Belt Conference USA, that whole thing kind of shook up. Trickle down fully there. How many conferences do we end up with? How many teams in those conferences? Where are they? There's a lot to happen, but it's going to be way more. way crazier this time around, just because it's going to be all these huge brands making moves for the future.
Yeah, and going back to a point you said how kind of once UTNOU left, everybody was in this panic, like, oh, here we go, everything's blown up. But then it was quiet for a couple months. Everything kind of simmered down. Nobody was really talking about realignment for a while, and it almost seemed like we were just going to kind of continue as we were with UTNOU going to the SEC, and that's that. But then this move, to me, in my mind, is like, this is it. Like, here we go. If UTNOU wasn't going to blow everything up, USC, UCLA, the
It has to.
combination of both of them,
Yeah.
it has to. Like, literally, something has to happen now. And so, of course, Texas and Oklahoma were the first dominoes to fall. But like, if the Pac-12 is to blow up, like you said, Oregon is definitely the powerhouse right now of that conference. Even with USC and UCLA still there, Oregon is the football powerhouse, and you can even argue basketball. But what are they going to do if the Pac-12 blows up?
Yeah, I mean, Oregon's going to find a home.
They're the safest of anybody.
I think they're definitely going to find a home, just because you've got the Nike money. Phil Knight, they're probably on the Big Ten short list.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. Yeah.
If they were on the the Big 12 short list, that would be fantastic. Bring them on over. Yeah, I think throw up the rock from Rockefeller is very similar to throw up the O from Oregon. So maybe Yormar, go bring them over here.
Yeah. I'd be okay with that. Might be a little scared, but I'd be okay with it.
But yeah, well, they're going to continue to be good at football, and they're going to continue to have a very strong brand. So they'll be fine. However it shakes out, I have to think that they're going to find a place in this new Western expansion Big Ten.
Yeah, I think Oregon, again, like, they're definitely the safest of the bunch, because you have to think, if anything's going to go down, the most likely scenario is that the Pac-12, ceases to exist. They're going to be the Big East of a decade ago. That everything kind of falls apart. Teams are going to start leaving. But there's also talk too about, in the ACC, Clemson, Florida State, Miami, those somewhat powerhouse programs are looking for SEC or Big Ten invites. And of course, nothing's confirmed. It's just rumors. But like, if that happens, is the ACC and the Pac-12 going to cease to exist? Like, and then we're just basically going to have a massive Big Ten and a massive SEC. Like, I saw this one take on Twitter. It's pretty funny. They said, hey guys, I have a crazy idea. Let's just get like 24 teams in a massive conference up north and call it something like the Northern Football Conference. And then we can do the same in the South, maybe call it something like the Athletic Football Conference. And then at the end of the year, the NFC champion and the AFC champion can play each other for the championship. It's like crazy idea.
It would be pretty super. That final game could be super. Played in a bowl.
Exactly. So we're basically moving to the NFL, especially if you consider like the NIL aspect, how the players are getting more power over their coaches. It's just crazy the direction everything is going right now. I have no idea what is to come.
Yeah, I think to the question about the ACC, I mean, I wonder how nervous some of the teams are there. Like you said, Clemson, Florida State, and Miami are going to be safe. They'll find their way somewhere, whether it's the SEC or this Big Ten. But yeah, like what happens to everybody else? I think, again, they may be on less solid ground than some of the teams in the Big 12 and even this new Pac-10. So I'd be concerned from their end as well. I think everyone probably is just nervous about what it's going to mean to their team. Unless you're sitting steady in the Big Ten or the SEC, you're probably a little worried about how the state of things are going to shake out.
Yeah. Because I wonder too, like, what would happen, like the Georgia Techs of the world in the ACC, like same thing with like in the Pac-12. Like, I mean, I guess Colorado's pretty safe. I don't know though, but not really, I guess.
No, they've got to come back they've got to come on back to the Big 12.
And I would be totally see if the Big 12 was to add, because it makes the most sense geographically. If we were to do Arizona State, those probably take priority. I would love to see Utah just because of, rehashing a little bit of a rivalry
Yeah,
between the
and the
Frogs and
BYU
Utes.
rivalry too. I
Yes.
mean, once you've got that massive rivalry on in your conference, you can definitely sell that to television providers.
Yeah, exactly. And, if we were going to bring all those guys on, you kind of have to round it out with an even number, and Colorado would fit the bill. Just, come on back, baby. I don't know, though. Would you prefer for the Big 12 to add teams or stay at 12 if everything, blows up?
I think you have to add. I mean,
I
if
do
you're
too.
if you're trying to keep up, eventually this is going to come into some way, and this is probably part of why we haven't gotten to an expanded playoff yet, because this conference stuff has to shake out probably before that happens. But you're going to have to keep up, at least in numbers, to keep your television rights packages viable, to keep um, your to keep pace in any kind of whatever to keep up.
I think you cut out a little bit there. What was that last part?
Just saying that if you want to be a participant in however you obtain a national championship, you're going to have to keep up
Oh,
with
yeah.
the Joneses there
Yeah.
in at least grabbing teams that, in a year, sometimes Utah is excellent, sometimes Colorado is excellent, sometimes Arizona State is excellent. So yeah, and then yeah, you're also not just doing it for football, because some of this stuff, if you're competing with those other conferences in basketball as well, yeah, I mean, you bring on the Arizona schools and Utah particularly. That's big time basketball. The Big 12
Yeah.
would be very much the top basketball destination.
I mean, I think they already are, but yeah, you're right. Like, you have to look at kind of across all sports, because although football is king and football is likely going to have the biggest impact in terms of deciding conference realignment, you got schools like Virginia who have a fantastic baseball program, fantastic basketball program, haven't really done much with football. So, like, where does a team like Virginia land? Where does a team like Vanderbilt land, who's like academically awesome and really good at baseball, but not so much anything else? So, like, it's going to be interesting to see if those teams get left out of, I don't know, maybe like all these big conferences, new power conferences, whatever comes to be. But overall, with kind of everything we've discussed, if you had to list like your ideal scenario, because something's about to happen, what would you prefer it be?
Yeah, my thought on this is we already have super conferences. That's happening now. We've got two super conferences,
Yeah.
and may as well just make it happen. Get your my thought on it is three conferences of 24 teams in each conference, and each conference has two divisions of 12. That is leftover Pac-12 schools and maybe like Texas Tech, and then and BYU, and then you've got like a Big 12 East that's rest of the Hateful Eight, and then maybe pull somebody from the ACC, pull in Louisville or something, and that becomes your 24 team conference. When really it would probably operate more like two 12 team conferences. It would end up appearing very similar to the way conferences used to look not that long ago. But they would just be kind of controlled under one banner. And yeah, I mean, you could have it where the two divisions of the West and the East, Big Ten, play in the Rose Bowl for their conference championship, and then yeah, the two winners from the two sides of the Big 12 play in the Cotton Bowl or in Las Vegas or something, and so it, maybe it becomes like a way as like a play in into the playoff. I don't know, but that that kind of separates, though, a very, even though we already have the Power Five separates, this Power Three would separate, and those below those three conferences would it would really turn them into like FCS level
Yeah,
in
it
the
would.
way their access to a playoff, their access to, televised games. I think it may be that going that route is just too devastating to the sport of college football, but I think that's the way that makes the most sense without it just being these two running away with all of the power.
Yeah, I think we're kind of beyond the making sense point of college football, but
That's-
like I think that's not too bad. I think if it's gonna go that direction, the super conferences, that's kind of like a nice middle ground almost. Kind of the way I thought about it, the way you described it was how in bowl games, the Rose Bowl is typically Big Ten, Pac-12 at the end of the year, but it's almost now like we would have that regular season matchup of this half of the conference versus this half of the conference for basically the whole year, and then the winners would get to go on. So that is interesting. I would like, the Big 12 to be a part of it if we are going to do three super conferences, or at least for TCU just to get in one. But if I had to have an ideal scenario, it would be that everything just stop. We just stop doing what we're doing. The NCAA focuses on football for once because 5 years ago the NCAA was this super strict governing body. Like they literally, I remember there was a kid that wanted to transfer from Georgia to Nebraska to be closer to his dying grandmother, and they wouldn't let him play. And, like just because they're so strict, such sticklers. And then now they're, oh, you want to sign $1 million NIL deal? Sure. Oh, you guys want to leave conferences? Sure. Yeah, sure. Just willy nilly, everything's just happening. So I want the NCAA to focus on college football rather than the off field aspects of college football. But ideally, if we could just keep 5 conferences, 14 teams each, I don't care who moves where. I would like to keep 5 conferences, but it seems like we're definitely headed towards the super conferences. I will say though, I also have an interesting proposal. Now, are you familiar with the English Premier League and European soccer like relegation system?
Oh yes, absolutely. I love this. Go
Okay,
for it.
so for those that don't know, the bottom 3 teams in the Premier League, they are automatically relegated, sent down to the secondary tier league called the Championship, whereas the top 3 in the Championship move up and are automatically in the Premier League. And this affects finances, TV ratings, everything. Like it's huge for the club to move up or move down. And I think it would be very interesting if we had a college football world where we had 3 or 4 tiers and you needed to get in the top 5 to move up a tier. And then once you move up a tier, you get access to more funding, you get more primetime TV slots. But if a team like Ohio State, they go 6-6 one year, they're down a tier. They're losing money. They're not getting as many, so I think it would be a very interesting element. It's never going to happen ever. Like America would never do that.
I love it as a thought exercise. I think it's impossible because there's
Yes.
just not the schedules are uneven.
Yeah.
You don't play everybody, right? So like in the Premier League, everybody plays the same schedule over the course of a long season, and so you're able to very clearly determine, all right, these 3 teams, you're done. You're down for next season. In college football, if you've got a bunch of Sunbelt teams playing each other, is that but Kansas goes 0-12 against a Big 12 schedule, who's actually worse? How do you determine that? Is it some
Maybe
computer? Is it the BCS calculation?
each
Um,
conference represents a tier. Each tier has 12 teams.
there you
They
go.
all play a schedule against each other, and if you get
Okay.
last, you go down. I don't know. That
Okay.
might
No, that's
that,
creative. I like it.
that might make sense a little bit. American sports will never do that, but it's fun to conspirize a
It's
little bit
too
with all
it's too
this.
fun and interesting to happen in anything in American sports. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Overall, yeah. So you had the 3 super conferences. I would much prefer that over, just the Big Ten and SEC, which looks like what we have. But kind of to wrap it up, we've talked about it a little bit. Overall, from a Big 12 standpoint, what do we think they are going to do? Not what could they do. What do we think is like the most likely outcome for us?
I'm pretty concerned that it ends up being do nothing.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess I say concerned because I just don't think that puts the conference and TCU in particular in a very good position for a long-term future.
Hmm.
But if I and it's a new world. We're out of a Bob Bowlesby world, so
That is true.
maybe I'm thinking in a Bob Bowlesby mindset of whatever's the wrong thing is what we'll end up doing. Um, I think so. I would like to think that the Big 12 now has an opportunity to be the aggressor
Hmm.
in this situation. And the Big 12 has had that opportunity in the past and turned it down when several years ago, all those same Cincinnati, Houston, Memphis, BYU, Boise, all those same teams were begging to get into the Big 12, and the Big 12 went through that whole dog and pony show asking for proposals and flying people all around the country and just said no, we're good,
Yeah.
and moved on. And I kind of think if Cincinnati and Houston and UCF and BYU were in the conference previously from a few years ago, Texas and Oklahoma may not have had quite as much need to leave. You would
Yeah,
have
I
had
agree.
a much broader national audience. You would have had an opportunity at a bigger pie for TV markets and for TV media rights. So I think it's unfortunate that the Big 12 sat on their hands for so long, and now given the opportunity to go attack, I'd like to see him go attack. Whether it's go take somebody from the Pac-12, go take people from the ACC, whatever it is, make sure, and it's definitely not signing up to some alliance agreement or you
Yeah.
know your mark becoming good friends with Kliavkov from the Pac-12 and just like, oh, we're all buddies, because clearly that's
There's no
that's
buddies in the modern college football world.
there's no buddies. So you got to go take it, and I hope the Big 12 goes and takes it, whatever that
I
ends up being.
I totally agree. I think at this point where we are right now, the Big 12 definitely does have to act like an aggressor. I would prefer we add 4 teams from the Pac-12, just have the Pac-12 blow up, everybody go somewhere else. We take Utah, Colorado, Arizona, ASU, like we said. But we also mentioned the possibility of like Clemson, FSU looking to get in these super conferences. So if that happens, ACC might be blowing up. I'd be okay with taking 4 ACC teams. But I agree with just the direction, with what everybody else is doing. We would look foolish to not at least try and do something and add something. Because if you do add those teams, I think right now the Big 12 has a pretty strong brand as is. And like if you add those 4 teams, that's just, I guess I was going to say you can't beat that, but then you got the SEC. So like,
Yeah, and the SEC is very clearly, the fan bases. You're filling 100,000 seat stadiums, but at the end of it, you've got two teams right now, at least, that are head and shoulders above everyone,
yeah,
and they're above everyone other than maybe Clemson and Ohio State nationally as well. So, yeah, the SEC is great because it has the two best teams.
you're right. But their
But
depth is nowhere near
outside of
ours.
that, I
Yeah.
mean, okay, Tennessee's a little resurgent. LSU's down but has a new coach. Florida's down but has a new coach.
I
How
mean, if you
good is
look
the
at the
SEC
big
really?
picture,
And
yeah.
and that's obviously talking from a not an SEC hater. I grew up in SEC country, rooted for SEC teams. That's my my past, but I'm not a hater. But I don't know that outside of the two big guys is the actual on field product all that much better.
No, you're
than-
right. Yeah, you're right. I think if we're talking depth and like big picture wise, the Big 12 definitely competes because just those 2, 3 schools every year, like the 11-1 Alabama, 11-1 Georgia, 10-2 LSU, like they always get all the media attention, get all the talk because like, oh look, they just beat Tennessee and Vanderbilt by 30 points each. But I would agree though. I think the Big 12 is a little bit more competitive from top to bottom. Um, I
yeah,
just
where the Big 12 today and probably forever cannot compete is just in fan support.
yes,
Nobody
yeah,
will care about TCU the way that the people of Mississippi care about Ole Miss. We're not
Very true.
buying 19,000 Jello shots in Omaha.
That
It's
was
not going to happen,
absurd.
right? So, so yeah, and that's understood. But outside of that, and the Big Ten, I mean, like, shoot, who's going to Northwestern games? I mean, Rutgers
Freshmen.
games, right? Like, come on. Just don't pretend that like Northwestern and Rutgers and like Indiana are bigger and more passionate about football than the fans in Stillwater or
Like Ames.
Provo,
Yeah.
Utah, or whatever. Like, I think Big 12 is very strong in that way. Obviously, losing Oklahoma and Texas means you don't have a brand at the level of Ohio State or Alabama or Georgia, but outside.
Back. Oh, sorry. I think you cut out a little bit, but no, I agree exactly basically with what you said. It will be interesting to kind of see how like the media views us and everything once we don't have the OU brand or UT brand. But we don't need it. Who needs that?
Maybe a question for you is, what do you think's best for TCU? Like, TCU just thinking selfishly for itself. Because I saw some reports that like, hey, the Big Ten's not done, and on its list of teams include Kansas and Oregon and TCU.
Interesting.
Is that from a purely selfish TCU perspective? Is that a better option than sticking in a Big 12 that expands with new brands?
That is a tough question. I don't know because like yes, it would be awesome to be included in the super conferences, like to be considered one of those upper echelon teams that deserves a bid. Um, but at the same time, if we go to the Big Ten or the SEC, we're probably not going to have much success right away. And I don't know if I would rather.
Really? I mean, I don't know. Is beating Illinois and Indiana and Purdue
You're right. I mean,
and
you're right. You're right.
Northwestern
I guess
and
I'm just thinking.
Maryland?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
just thinking Ohio State, Michigan. Yeah, you're right. It's basically the same thing as playing Oklahoma or Oklahoma State on their good years. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Come on. I,
I would
you
say
could do
if
that.
I had a personal choice, I would say I would rather us stay in the Big 12 as long as it's secure. Like, I think what's best for us is if the Big 12 is secure, not going to blow up anywhere, we may add teams, then I think staying put is the best scenario for us. But if shit hits the fan, TCU finding a new conference would be the best
And that's the
interest.
thing, is it's that security of like, all right, we're in the good club. We're we got we're made men. We got our pass. We're all set. That's what a Big Ten invite would mean.
Yes.
And that's what 10 years ago a Big 12 invite meant.
Yeah.
To TCU. So I and at that time it was an easy thing to say, oh yeah, I can't wait to go and beat Texas 8 times and go beat Baylor. And yeah, that was an easy choice. I think it's a harder choice when it's like, oh, I got to travel to Champaign, Illinois, and I got to travel to Madison, Wisconsin. That sounds less fun. Well, Madison, Wisconsin sounds pretty fun.
That would be cool.
But
Yeah. Seeing jump around in Camp Randall.
that would be fun. It would be fun to relive some Rose Bowl memories of taking them down in Pasadena. But yeah, I'm totally with you. I agree that I'd love for the Big 12 to be stable and to be included as part of the in crowd. But right now, Big 12's not part of the in crowd.
Yeah,
And
and like, would I be opposed to a Big Ten invite? Because to me, if we do like an official Big Ten invite, that means the cookie's crumbling. Like, and we need to
yeah,
take it. I don't think if we get an invite, we should not
somebody
hesitate.
else will get it.
Exactly.
If you don't go, it's going to Oklahoma State or somebody.
Exactly.
It's going to somebody else.
So we're gonna have to jump on that if it happens. So that also is interesting too, because what happens if your mark gets an invite for, or not your mark, sorry, that's Big 12, but like if TCU gets an invite specifically to the Big Ten, Sorry, I just blanked completely on what I was about to say, but
would we take it? Would Donati? Oh yeah, we're in. Would he?
yes, yeah, never mind.
Would he
Yes.
make it happen?
Yes, sorry, I lost my train of thought. But yeah, basically, would we take it right now? Because is the Big 12 secure enough right now to not or to say no to that, you know?
It's
And I
not.
don't
Yeah,
know.
it's
Exactly.
definitely
And I
not
don't know.
secure enough right now. That's why the Big 12 has to be on the offensive, because if you don't go and fortify it now, you're going to lose somebody to somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah.
And everybody's going to be out looking for themselves if you don't make the Big 12 strong enough to withstand whatever's coming.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be a fun next couple days or week or so. I don't know how long this saga is gonna last, but I'm gonna have
Yeah, who
my
knows?
Twitter notifications on the
It's
ready.
never it's never ending. I'm sure there'll be something massive next off season as well. Next summer, something
Yeah, with
crazy will happen again.
the way college football is heading, I don't even know what's gonna happen next year. So,
Yeah, I mean these two moves the last 2 years were pretty much unthinkable.
and they
Like
happened.
if you had said 3 summers ago, oh yeah, in a couple years, Oklahoma and Texas will be in the SEC, and USC and UCLA will be in the Big Ten. It would have been like, well, why? What?
Yeah, it's like, yeah, why? What do you?
That's ridiculous. That makes no sense. And so here we are.
Yeah, I remember when like the news first broke. I was on FaceTime with my girlfriend, and I was like, "Babe, do you understand what this means?" And she's like, "No." And I'm like, "It's crazy. This is insane." And like, I just started basically explaining. She's like, "Well, why would they leave the Big 12 for the SEC?" And I'm like, "One word, money. That's it.
That's
That's
it.
basically it." So yeah, it's going to be a wild time in the college football world for the next few weeks or months, or who knows how long this will last. But it'll be fun theorizing and making conspiracies as to what might possibly happen. I'm sure there's going to be millions on Twitter in the near future, but yeah, we'll probably end up touching on this again if something else happens, if like another team moves a conference.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be little nuggets along the way, little rumors dropped, a little some.
Yeah.
This won't be the end of the news on this topic, and
Certainly not, yeah.
we had to react to it. It's fresh. It's fun to
It's all I can
think
think
about all this
about.
craziness and like what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? And yeah, just hope the Frogs have a seat at the table for college football playoff in the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah, this is like all I've been able to think about for the last 2 days, as well as also, Kevin Durant potentially being traded, but that's neither here nor there. That's another topic. But yeah, sports news has been nuts lately. Alrighty, though. I think that's going to round out the episode for us. If you guys stayed till the end, we appreciate you as always. Be sure we'll be posting another episode next week. Check out our recaps, 2021-2022 year in review. We got a lot of sports up right now. Got one coming tonight, or I guess yesterday when you listen to this. Swimming and diving will be up, and we'll continue it from there. I think basketball will probably be the next big one up on the board. So yeah, thank you guys for listening. We'll see you guys next week, and go Frogs.
Go Frogs.